Hi guys, it's Penelope in London, and it's the solar eclipse tomorrow, which will be at 20 degrees of Leo, and that's August the 12th, and it will be British summertime. It's at 18:45 p.m. and I think universal time. I won't go there because I'll get confused. But in the UK, if you look at British summertime and translate it to, if you're in California as an example, you're 8 hours behind, and in New York, 5 hours behind. So there's a couple of examples. So for this eclipse in the UK, I'm going to actually get out to the local park because I know where the sun is going to be setting, and it begins around 6:17 p.m. in the UK, and it will reach its maximum just under an hour later, and it ends about 8:06 p.m. So that's a good 2 hours, just under 2 hours of enjoyment there. I'm not going to look at it, but I want to experience the feeling of it. And I noticed when I saw one before in the UK, it went really quiet, like it was during the day, and all of the birds went quiet. There were birds tweeting. And when the eclipse happened, solar eclipse, it was really a wonderful memory to actually go back to. So let's hit this chart and see what's going on. So, what is an eclipse? So, if we think about, what an eclipse is, it's like the light is being sort of taken away for a moment, momentarily. And this is at 20 degrees Leo. So you need to look in your chart where this may be for you. And before I go what it means astrologically, I want to explain a little bit about what an eclipse actually is, because this is one of those areas in astrology where there's a lot of dramatic language gets used without underlying mechanics being clearly explained. And I think the mechanics are genuinely fascinating and actually help us to understand the meaning. And also, before I go any further, if anything I talk about resonates with you, there's my booking page. You can check that out in the description. So I do one-to-ones as well. So a solar eclipse is always on a new moon, and it happens when the moon passes directly between the Earth and the sun, briefly blocking the sun's light. And it's not, it's an ordinary new moon at the time, but the moon is so close to the sun, but not perfectly aligned. And the shadow passes, if you get this in your head, the shadow passes above or below the earth. In an eclipse, so that's a normal one. In an eclipse, the alignment is precise. So it's like a precise alignment. I hope that makes sense there. And it's precise enough that the moon's shadow falls on the earth, and a total solar eclipse, which this one is, means that the moon's disk covers the sun completely, turning day into a strange twilight for a few minutes along the path of totality. And what makes the eclipse more powerful than an ordinary new moon is its relationship with the nodal axis. So we have the north node and the south node. And eclipses only happen when the new or full moon occurs close to the north or south pole. So the points where the moon's orbit intersects the ecliptic and the apparent path of the sun through the sky. And the eclipse at 20 degrees of Leo is a south node eclipse, and the moon is aligned with the south node in Leo. And that distinction, the south node rather than the north node, fundamentally shapes what this eclipse is asking of the collective. And what I'm going to do towards the end, after I've looked at this, I'm going to talk about the Saros cycles, what that means. If you've not heard about that before, it's how often eclipses happen. So apparently it's every 18 years and 11 days that it's like Saros cycle 126, this one, which I don't want to confuse you right now. We'll go to that towards the end of the video for anybody that's interested in holding on into know what that's about. So a south node eclipse, it's a release. It's not launching. It's like releasing something. And a great deal of eclipse astrology treats all eclipses as dramatic launching pads, events that catapult us into something new. And the North Node eclipses do carry that quality of new beginnings, which we'll have one in a couple of weeks. We'll have a lunar eclipse in a couple of weeks in Pisces. But for now, We've got the quality but with the South Node, they work differently. This brings a pattern to the point of exhaustion. So this is about the patterns that we've been repeating over time, and depending on what house it falls in for each of us. This is why it's very important to look where 20 degrees Leo is on your astrology chart. And they bring a pattern to a point of exhaustion. They reveal what has reached its limit and can no longer be sustained in its current form. And they do not, they do not push forward. They call for a reckoning. They illuminate what must be what we must leave behind, let go of, before the next chapter can genuinely begin. So I've personally felt my own shift going on. For me, it's in my ninth house, and that's about spirituality. It's also about beliefs and, higher education, all of these different things. And also it's about publishing as well and various other things, but that gives you some idea, the ninth house. So they're going to illuminate the things that we need to release. And this is a South Node eclipse in Leo, which makes it very interesting. The sun goes dark in its own sign. So the sun is actually going dark in its own sign because the sun and Leo go together. Leo is ruled by the sun. And it's where the solar energy is most at home in Leo, most radiant, most fully itself. Near the South Node, though, it's a profound collective image. It is not the sun, the triumphant in Leo. It is the sun temporarily extinguished in Leo. So if we can sit with that, the sun temporarily extinguished in Leo, precisely in order to show us where Leo energy has been distorted, overextended, or used in ways that no longer serve genuine growth. So that's, a big energy, the sun and Leo. And the distorted Leo patterns that a South Node eclipse in Leo is asking the collective to release are specific. So the hunger for external validation would be one of them. The need to be seen and acknowledged by others in order to feel worthy. The performance of confidence rather than genuine embodiment. So embodying ourselves, and this links in with the Taurus, Chiron in Taurus actually as well. If we think Taurus is about embodiment, and Chiron there is the wound. So this all links in beautifully. So the ego's insistence on being the central character in every story, as we can see with some politicians as well around the world, and the pridefulness that gets in the way of genuine connection. And we can see that in our own relationships as well. And the leadership that depends on recognition rather than on genuine service. So a lot of us are going to have our eyes opened through this period of time in our own lives, but also collectively. So none of these are Leo at its best. They are Leo's shadow, because there's a shadow to everything. Taurus, Leo has its shadow, Taurus has its shadow. There's all these different things. Scorpio, everything has a higher octave and in between and a lower. And the South Node eclipse is the moment when its shadow is brought into full view, precisely because it's ready to be released. Now the North Node is in late Aquarius. It's at 29 degrees. So if we look at this chart, I was ignoring the chart here. This chart is the 11th of August. So we're going to go a day ahead. So we're up to scratch. I forgot about the chart for a minute. And then we're going to go hours. So this is, let's put in the time, which is here, 18. I'm going to put 18:30 and see where we're at and come back to it. So you see the moon is just going into meet up with the sun just there. So if we go an hour ahead, and you can see the moon's passed over. So that's 20 degrees. And go minutes back. You might not see it moving, but it's moving. If you look here, the numbers are moving. So the moon, let's make it exact. There you go. So there it is. And you can see here that the North Node is in Aquarius at this time. So the North Node is in late Aquarius, the direction of genuine collective intelligence, of community built on shared values. And the ruler of that Aquarius is Uranus. And also it's about networking of lights rather than a single sovereign flame, frame or flame. What the South Node eclipse in Leo is releasing is being released in service of that Aquarian direction. And the Aquarian direction is that we are many, 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 many lights. And it's not just one individual. The individual ego's performance is being composted so that genuine collective contribution can emerge in its place. And I do believe this is what's going on, and it will do so. So the eclipse chart is Mercury, Jupiter, and the grand sextiles. So you see here, we have Mercury and we have Jupiter at 5 degrees of Leo. And we also have the sun at 20 degrees, the moon, and then we've got Venus up here in in Libra at this point. Venus is in Libra at 5 degrees. We have Lilith in Capricorn. I don't know if that's true, Lilith. I'd have to check another chart, which we'll do in a little moment. And then we've got Pluto at 3 degrees of Aquarius. So this is quite very Aquarian stuff going on that we have going on. We've got Neptune at 4 degrees of Aries retrograde, and you can see Pluto's retrograde there as well. Saturn at 14 degrees of Aries retrograde. We've got Chiron at 0 degrees retrograde, so that's going back into Aries for a couple of months before it gets back. I think it gets back in next April. Again, I could take the chart forward, but I won't do it now. And then we got Uranus, 5 degrees of Gemini. And then we've got Mars, which has literally just moved in at this point to the sign of Cancer. So let's go back hours and see when Mars moved into the sign of Cancer. So we're going back to the time, which is it's literally just left Gemini. So you can see things moving. So you can see here 8. So that would have been today, August the 11th. And then we're going to go forward again by hours. And we're going to go to 6, around 6 p.m. Okay. So this is a really rich chart. It's an eclipse chart, and it's the sun and moon are keeping Mercury and Jupiter both alongside Leo. They're sort of working together also because they're in the same sign, but although they're not conjunct exactly, I would say that Mercury and Jupiter are conjunct and the sun and moon are conjunct, but they're not that close, but they are in the same sign. And the South Node is up there as well at 29 degrees of Leo. So Mercury in Leo brings the quality of communication that comes from the heart and the word that is spoken from genuine creative authority rather than from calculation or performance. So it's not about being calculated or performative. And Jupiter in Leo amplifies the entire Leo field. It's, the faith, the generosity, the warmth, the expansiveness, creative possibility. Having both of these planets in the same sign as the eclipse creates a concentration of Leo energy at this time. And that is really, it's quite lovely, that Leo energy. However, we have got this eclipse going on that's going to darken it down for a couple of hours. And then this will work out over 6 months. And surrounding the whole configuration is what one source describes as a partial grand sextile. So if you look here, a flowing harmonious pattern connecting Venus in Libra up here, and Mercury and Jupiter in Leo here. So you can see that they're connected there. And they are also flowing in that pattern, which is harmonious, Venus in Libra. And Uranus in Gemini, Neptune in Aries, as I've just said, and Pluto in Aquarius, and the outer planet Trinity that we've been tracking all summer. And Uranus sextile Neptune. So Uranus here is sextile to Neptune, if you look at that there. And also Uranus is trying to Pluto. This is, we've got some good stuff going on here. Uranus is trying to Pluto up here, and Neptune is sextile to Pluto there. You see 4 degrees and 3 degrees. That's 60 degrees apart, and it's still operating at virtually an exact orb almost, providing this deep background of current collective evolution that has been present through nearly every, as the moon's been moving through since May, this has been going on, and the eclipse is landing inside this outer planet harmony, which suggests that what is being released at this south node, it's about release, and this eclipse is genuinely in service of a larger evolutionary movement, and the background current is very much coherent, and the eclipse is aligned with this. So the first solar eclipse over Europe since 1999, so I believe, and the eclipse is also a significant astronomical event in a way that is worth naming, and the path of totality crosses Greenland, Iceland, and northern Spain near sunset, making the first total solar eclipse visible from mainland Europe since 1999. That's a very long time ago. And 26 years, 27 years. So those in Spain, the sun. So those in Spain will probably see this as well. I haven't got any friends that I know that are in Spain at the moment. So for those in Spain, the sun will be low on the western horizon as totality begins. So not everybody's going to get the same view of it. Apparently, it's going to be quite good in the UK. So turning this late afternoon light into something eerie and sort of like twilight zone for approximately 2 minutes and 18 seconds doesn't sound like a lot, but it is, in my opinion. So astrologers have traditionally read eclipses as particularly significant for the geographical areas that fall within the path of totality. So it becomes, a lot of astrologers talk about this, that the path of totality and the path that it falls across the earth, there's something meaningful about that. It's not in a doom laden way, it's not all doom and gloom, but in the sense that the symbolic weight of the moment is most directly felt where the sky enacts the darkening. So northern Spain, apparently, and the Atlantic path carry this eclipse in a particularly embodied way. But astrologically, most practitioners read an eclipse by its contact with the natal chart rather than the geographical location. So if somebody's going to look at your chart, they're going to be talking about you. They're not going to necessarily talk about the geographical location. So wherever 20 degrees of Leo falls in your chart is where this eclipse is doing its most personal work, regardless of where you are physically at this time. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. And the lunar eclipse 2 weeks later, and that will be August the 28th at 4 degrees Pisces. That's going to fall on my Black Moon Lilith in my third house. So that's good for me. And the eclipses always come in pairs. Occasionally, it can be in threes throughout a year within an eclipse season. 2 weeks after the solar eclipse on August the 28th, there is the partial lunar eclipse, which will be 4 degrees of Pisces, as I just said. And eclipse seasons offer a beginning and a response within the same fortnight. Reading both together shows which two areas of life are being asked, we're being asked to move, at the same time. So I'm the ninth house and the third house for myself. And the solar eclipse, also at 20 degrees Leo, is about the release of the distorted Leo patterns. And for many people, the territory, it really depends on the territory, what house it's in, and the territory it's going to touch in your chart. For me, it's philosophy, publishing, and the transmission of wisdom and the higher meaning. And the lunar eclipse at 4 degrees Pisces is responding to the Piscean territory of compassion, dissolution, the unconscious, and the hidden interior life. So 2 weeks between them carry the tension between Leo and Pisces, the deepening between letting go of the performance and surrendering into the more spirituality, more interior, and more genuinely compassionate self that Pisces represents. So look to where, again, 4 degrees of Pisces falls in your chart. That is where the lunar eclipse is completing the picture. And on a personal note, I've said it's my ninth house, which is very good for me because I'm working on a couple of projects that will be very helpful. At the same time, this eclipse is doing a couple of other things for me. It's squaring my natal Neptune in Scorpio. And also it is trining, which is very nice to is it in the ninth house, this Leo eclipse. It's trining to my Venus, and the sun and moon are trining to my Venus and sextile to my moon. So whatever it means for me, I think it's some creativity going on there. So I think the long-term transits of an eclipse moments are very significant because they last over 6 months. So how to work with this? The South Node eclipse rewards honest reckoning rather than ambitious launching. So it's better not to launch at this time. It's better to think about, what am I, have an honest reckoning with ourselves and with situations. So the invitation of the Leo eclipse is not to begin something new in the Leo territory of your chart. Not yet. It's to look honestly at what the Leo area of your life has been built. What's been built in the Leo area of your life. What's it been built on? Where has the desire to be seen been running the show in a way that is no longer serving you? Where has performance or confidence replaced the embodiment of it? So we can perform and we can have confidence, but we may actually not be embodying that. So we may put on that mask for the world, but inside we don't feel it. We're not embodying it. And where has the pride that Leo carries as its shadow been getting in the way of something more genuine? So if we are too prideful, or we're not prideful enough, maybe as well, I would say, of certain things. Like there's things to have great pride for, but there's also things where pride can be very tricky for us. Like we're not really going in the direction we want to. Out of pride, we might stick at something and just to prove a point that somebody else is wrong, as an example. So these are not comfortable questions that when we work with them, but the South Node eclipses are not in the business of comfort at all. They're in the business of genuine release. And what is released at a South Node eclipse? When the release is conscious and honest rather than forced and reactive. So watch out if you want to start reacting to things, because that will be a sign that you need to take a deep breath. So we're creating space for something that belongs to the North Node direction at this time. So there's something that belongs to the North Node direction of our life. So for me, the fact that that's falling on my Lilith is a real nice sort of wake up to me to understand my direction. But it's going to be different for everyone there. So in this case, the Aquarian direction, the genuine collective contribution, the individual light in service or network rather than simply shining for its own sake. And then also do go find 20 degrees Leo in your chart. I know I've said it a couple of times, because this is where the sun's going to go dark temporarily for a short amount of time in those 24 hours. And then we know that the 4 degrees Pisces a few weeks later. So the sun will return as it always does. It goes dark and then it pops back up again. But when it comes back from this eclipse, it will be different from what was there before. This is the gift of the South Node eclipses in Leo. The light that returns is genuine light, not performance. So now I've got some stuff here that I also would like to look at, which is the Sabian symbol, which for the 20 degrees Leo. So I don't know if you know about Sabian symbols, but there's a guy he's got a page, it's Sabian symbols, and his name is James. I'll put his link below in the description box as well. And he talks about 20 degrees Leo, what happens with Sabian symbols, it's like 20 to 21 degrees. So something is 20 degrees, then it goes to the next thing, the next sort of Sabian symbol, I'm calling it a thing. So every degree of the zodiac carries a Sabian symbol, an image channeled in 1925 by a clairvoyant called Elsie Wheeler, and later developed by an astrologer called Mark Edmund Jones, and one of the most widely used symbolic systems in astrology. So the Sabian symbol of 20 degrees of Leo, the exact degree of this solar eclipse, is it's called, it made me laugh, intoxicated chickens. So some things, written about this, there's some things that are written about this, and more fully as chickens intoxicated from eating insects. And I'll give you a moment with the intoxicated chicken idea. a total solar eclipse in the most regal sign of the zodiac. We've got the 29th, the 20 degree, sorry, this isn't the no, the nodes I'm talking about. This is the 20-degree Leo here. So when we sit with this, the image is remarkable actually for the South Node eclipse in Leo is asking us to examine. The chickens did not decide to get intoxicated, okay? So chickens didn't sort of think we're going to get intoxicated. They were not consciously overindulging or deliberately seeking an altered state. They were simply doing what chickens do. And what do chickens do? They peck at what is available, following their natural appetites, behaving in ways that felt completely ordinary and instinctive, feel that way. And though that ordinary repetition of natural behavior that ended up stumbling around the yard in a state they did not choose and cannot quite account for. So if we think about that as us as human beings, how we, stumble around through our days and we do, the same things every day, and we basically don't really think about too far ahead, really. We think, what am I eating tonight? What am I doing? What time I've got to get up? What all of these different things we do. And we don't sort of take into account that, that things are going to get in our way, but they do sometimes. And these chickens became intoxicated because they had some insects that were not good for them. So this South Node in Leo shadow it's a very honest image. The hunger for recognition, the ego's need to be seen and acknowledged, and the habitual reaching towards validation. These do not usually feel like excess when we reach for validation. We all do it, on social media. We're all, not all of us, but many of us, we're doing it. We're posting our content. I'm making my videos. We all want somebody to like something that we're doing genuinely or generally and genuinely. We do want people to, when we put out content and when we do things, art, anything we do, singing, like it's, hey, look at me. So that it's like a natural appetite that we have, and we are drawn toward the things that feel native to our Leo nature. And we've all got Leo in our chart, which is the warmth, the self-expression, the desire to shine. And through ordinary unconscious repetition of those patterns, we can end up intoxicated, stumbling in a state that has accumulated without us even noticing, until suddenly we look up and we cannot find our footing. So the eclipse at 20 degrees of Leo is the moment of looking at the yard and seeing what has happened. So what I reckon we're doing is that we can call planet Earth is our yard, okay? It's our backyard. And we're seeing what has happened. So the sun goes dark and the ordinary light is removed. And in that darkness, what becomes visible is the intoxication. We say, oh my gosh, we're all intoxicated in one way or another. The unconsciousness of an excess, the ego trip that felt like natural self-expression, the stumbling that was mistaken for dancing. So, somebody could be stumbling and you could think they're dancing, but actually they're stumbling. So once seen, it cannot be unseen. Once we see something, we can't unsee it. And that is always the gift of the South Node. So we're going to see something. It could be within ourselves, or it could be with a collective situation, and we will not unsee it. And that clarity that's the clarity that arrives when the sun is doing its thing by, taking away a bit of its light, or the moon is taking away some of the light. It's all happening. We're connected on Earth. And the image also carries a quality of genuine and gentle, sorry, I said genuine again, gentle comedy. And this is worth holding. The eclipse is not asking for self-condemnation or dramatic renunciation. So we don't have to condemn ourselves. It's asking for us to be honest, honest about things, slightly rueful recognition of the person who looks at the chickens and laughs and then understands. So you can laugh at what's going on, and then you understand something, and it's not a matter to be laughed at. So the South Node release that this eclipse is calling is not, none of it's punishment. We're all just living our lives. It's simply the moment of seeing clearly what has been running unconsciously and choosing now that it is visible to do something different. So this is time to do something different, which is really good. Now, the other thing was the Saros cycles. before I head off. I've got to get this bit, the Saros cycle of this eclipse, which is Saros cycle 126. And that may take me bringing up a chart at some point. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share another chart so you can see something here. Let's see. Okay. Okay, so this chart you can get, you see this is AstroSeek. If you look up here, you've got AstroSeek, and the chart that I'm just using that you saw before, that's SolarFire. This is called AstroSeek, and this is an easy way to see your own chart. If you've got your date, many of us have, some people don't. Birth time, again, some people do have it, some people don't. And place of birth, time, date, and place. And then put that in an AstroSeek, and then it will come up with your own birth chart. And if you've got the correct timing, it will give you your rising sign. It all depends on how much you know about astrology and how far you want to go. So this is a solar eclipse. And if you look, you can see this. This is true Lilith. So true Lilith is in Capricorn up here, and you can see these, we've got this trine from Pluto also to Venus, which is gorgeous. And then we have, or maybe not, but I like trines myself. Then we got the sextile. We have, as we said, we got this Pluto sextile to Neptune. You can see here there's another trine all the way down 5 degrees to Uranus. Then we've got also this Uranus then goes back to Neptune up here. And then we've got this going on, which is Uranus. We've got two of them. We've got the same sort of configuration going there. We've got Uranus going all the way up to Venus and trine, and then a sextile and a sextile. So it's quite an interesting chart. And Pluto is in opposition, almost has been, with Mercury in Leo at this eclipse, solar eclipse. And then we've got Jupiter, which is also not quite, it's almost within orb, because 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, it's 4 degrees away from Venus. So it's a very interesting chart. Then you've got some trines going on here. So, and then you can see, actually, without even looking at the chart, the image up there, you can see the sun is conjunct the moon. So it's a really great chart. So then you can go, the sun is doing sextile to Mercury. So see here. So not sextile, sextile, semi-sextile, which is third. I don't know if that's right, actually. Mercury, what's going on there? Oh, that's his Venus. No, it's not Mercury. It's Venus here. Look, sextile to Mercury. So yeah, there you go. Venus, sextile to Mercury. You have to be careful when you look at these things that we know what we're talking about. So anyway, you can see what's going on here. So the Saros cycle, let's go back to that. So once you have this piece of knowledge, every eclipse you encounter takes on a different quality of depth and meaning. I learned some of this today. I have read a couple of books on the eclipses, but people sort of specialize in different things, and you forever learning when you do astrology. So a Saros cycle is a period of approximately 18 years and 11 days and 8 hours, after which the sun, moon, and earth return to exactly the same relative positions. So SAROS for sugar. And they return to their same positions because all three bodies are back in the same geometric relationship to each other. That's what is going on with an eclipse. And an eclipse occurs at the start of a Saros cycle will be followed by nearly identical eclipses 18 years and 11 days later. So the same type of eclipse. This may be a lot to get your head around, but if you're listening, then that's great. So the same degree of coverage, a very small path across the Earth's surface shifted slightly in longitude, which I don't understand very much, but I'm pointing this out because of that extra 8 hours of Earth rotation. So what this means is that every eclipse belongs to a family called a Saros series. that began hundreds or even thousands of years ago and will continue for a thousand years into the future. Each series produces an eclipse every 18 years and 11 days. And the series with a very minor eclipse at one of the Earth's poles gradually deepens and moves towards the equator over many centuries. Sounds so fascinating. And it reaches maximum intensity in the middle of the series. And then gradually it diminishes until the final eclipse of the series ends again and becomes minor at the opposite end of a pole. So it ends the family after roughly, apparently, 1,200 to 1,500 years. And approximately within that period of that family, it's 70 eclipses in total. So astrologically, this is really, it's quite incredible. It's almost like clockwork. And there's apparently an astrologer called Bernadette Brady, whose book, Predictive Astrology, is the most significant contemporary work on the Saros cycle. And it reads each series as having a particular theme or signature that was established at the moment of the very first eclipse in that family. So it's like there's a theme, we come into a family, there's a theme. And actually, families work like this, don't they? You're born into a family, and there's a theme in that family. It can be anything. It can go from anywhere. You could be going to a theme of like royalty, or a theme of abundance, or you could go into a theme of poverty, and then you can see that this theme, it repeats itself through generationally. That would be one idea that comes to mind. I know it's not exactly the same, but at some point, the theme really sort of becomes maybe too much, and then maybe that's the wrong word, but then at some point it moves off, and then it changes. Something changes within the collective agreement of these events. So every subsequent eclipse within the series carries the imprint of that original chart. So the birth chart would be, somebody would be born at that time, for instance, in an eclipse, and that will continue as it does as well through lifetimes. So the theme of the whole family is present in every one of its eclipses, expressed through the particular chart of that individual occurrence. So I'm not talking about people here. I'm talking about the collective of these charts. So to understand the deepest meaning of any eclipse, you do not only need to look at the chart of the eclipse itself, you also look at the chart of the first eclipse in the Saros series, which gets heavy duty work to do that. So if I looked at, which I can't bring it up right now, but if I look at AstroSeek and I bring up the eclipses and I look at the 126 Saros cycle, then what we would see is that there will be a start date for that Saros cycle, and then it will have a date where it sort of wanes and it's no longer in that cycle anymore. 126, it's going to come to an end at some point. So understanding that the Saros cycle, might have occurred in the 9th or 10th century or even earlier, and ask what the founding moment was saying. So the founding moment of the eclipse was what the sky was doing when that family of eclipses was born. So what was the theme? We could look at the theme of something. What did it bring with it, and what has been carried forward through it? And again, you can relate that back to individual families, how we're born into families, and what occurs and what repeats itself until something changes. So the August 12th, 2026 solar eclipse belongs to the Saros. I've said it again, 126 Saros series. And if you want to go deeper into that meaning in this particular eclipse family, Bernadette Brady's Predictive Astrology is the place to look. I don't have that book, but I'm telling you so that you know, and maybe I will get that book one day because I have an interest in this. She gives a detailed interpretation of every Saros series and what it has been working with across its centuries of expression. So the Saros cycle is one of those pieces of knowledge that, once understood, it makes the sky feel genuinely alive with memory. So it's like a memory, it's like a memory bank. And every eclipse is not just one single isolated event, it's the latest chapter in a story that began long before any of us were born and will continue long after we're gone. And the eclipse on the tomorrow, August 12th, is very interesting. So you can see also the year, if you were born near an eclipse. I was born the day after a eclipse on the 21st of May, 1966. The day after there was an eclipse. So that would have been, so if I looked at that Saros cycle, and what I'm interested to do briefly while I'm here, because I'm going to go in a minute, I'm just going to look at AstroSeek on my mobile. And I'm going to look at the current planets, and then we're going to look the moon retrogrades. I wanted to look at the eclipses, so horoscopes, current planets, and I probably can't find it right away because it's a different view on my mobile. So I may come back to this and actually look at what that means in a bit of a deeper way. The moon, actually, that's a good one to look at. So bear with me while I'm doing this, because I can tell you when that first Saros cycle, or maybe not the first, but how far it goes back. So the chart for the 11th, and then if we see the 12th of August, which is tomorrow's solar eclipse, and will it click? And it's got eclipses. I found it. Good. So then I go Saros cycle 126, and if we go back in years, and we go back, today is, there's so many of them here, if I could show you. So the last one here that's connected to this one is August the 1st, 2008. So that's what I wanted to point out. So if you look to the August the 1st, 2008, that would be interesting. Whether that was a north node or a south node, I can't tell. Then we've got the one before that was July the 22nd, 1990. The one before that was in Cancer. It was July the 10th, 1972. So it's not always in Leo. There is a family as it moves through the signs. So if I go right back to the top, sorry you can't see this, but I will bring these up and do a bit more research on them. But the one that goes back as far as I can see here, I'm not digging further than this, goes to March 17th, 1179. So that was a long, long time ago. And that would have been 25 degrees Pisces. And actually, that would have been on my Chiron in my fourth house if I was alive then, but then it wouldn't be because I'd have a different chart. So there you go. Anyway, I'm leaving it there, and I hope you've really enjoyed this. And let me know if you leave some comments, and let me know where this eclipse is falling for you, and let me know what you think that means for you if you want to let me know. Thanks for listening.